Welcome to this video. My name is Richard Brown. I'm the Chief Officer of Avon LPC. And this session is all about the Community Pharmacist Consultation Service, GP referral. Today, we've got a number of people that we've got as part of this video that are going to walk you through what the service means from their perspective. You've got a small amount of me just doing some positioning, but then what you've actually got is you've got a general practitioner, you've got a pharmacist, you've got a practice manager, you've got my implementation manager talking about how we actually deliver the service. So what I want to do is give you a very quick overview as to exactly what we've achieved as part of the delivery of this service. So to put it into context, we've delivered well over 4,000 referrals now, and actually when we took the data in mid-August, it will be far higher by now. Across 35 GP practices and over 100 community pharmacies. Most importantly, it was a strategic initiative that we wanted to deliver from the Avon LPC perspective, along with NHS England and our local CCG. Without the support of all three organisations, this wouldn't have worked. But be under no illusion, the reason why this project has been the success that it has is because as an LPC, we owned the implementation across all stages. That means as an LPC, we went in and trained not only the community pharmacists, but we also trained the GP surgeries. And that's what made a huge difference. So just to give you a feel for how it's been going, it was growing exponentially up until COVID hit. What's really important and what I've been over the moon with is the fact that data rebounded as quickly as it did post-COVID. And that just shows that it was an important part of actual general practice workflow. Let's deal with a couple of misconceptions. Some people might lead you to believe that this is a service for seriously ill, elderly, comorbid patients. In fact, our over 60s make up a very small percentage of the people we see. In fact, we see a lot of middle-aged people, and we also see a lot of parents with children. They are also not acutely unwell in the majority of cases. In fact, only about 11% of patients have the condition for less than 24 hours, with the remaining 89% having it between 2 and over 3 days. And as you can see from the graph, actually, most people by a country mile have had the symptoms for over 3 days. And that's not to mean that we shouldn't be very cautious about things in acute conditions, but actually it's to reassure you that these are patients with common conditions that they've had for a while. What sorts of things do we see? Well, as you can see from the list there, we get pain, we get cough, cold and flu, we get skin rashes, we get the things that walk into community pharmacy day in, day out, and this service is no different. And as you'd expect, the way that we look after those patients, the vast majority of them are sorted out with advice and advice on the product. As you would expect in community pharmacy, because we see this day in, day out. Only 12% of the patients are handheld carefully back to the surgery and escalated for a same-day appointment. And that's really important when you emphasise that with the surgeries. They will still see some people coming back to them, but it'll be a very small percentage of the people, and it will be the ones that really do need an appointment that day. And that's really important to emphasise that. And that helps with, just from my perspective, just positioning where we've got to for the rest of this session. You're now going to hear from a series of people who have really lived and breathed this service over the past year and what it's meant to them, how they went about approaching it, how they delivered the service, some of their hopes, some of their fears. And I hope that what you'll be able to do is utilise that across your LPCs to be able to implement this service in the best possible way. Sit back and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you.
We know that there's a constant demand throughout the week from our patients who are wanting to access their GP, many of which will be with minor ailments which could be more suitably addressed in a community pharmacy. And we estimated that to being between 5 and 10% of our daily contacts, which we could appropriately signpost from primary care to a community pharmacy for help instead of using our GPs.
Yes, I suppose we were concerned that patients wouldn't see the advantage of care navigation and using the pharmacy, community pharmacy, but we needn't have worried because we've been navigating for quite some time in this practice, so patients were more used to it.
I think that my main fear was not being treated seriously by the patients, and I wasn't sure whether they're going to be happy to be referred to a pharmacist as opposed to seeing their own GP. I was also afraid of not being able to resolve the clinical issues that they're going to come to me with.
Our fears at the start were that the reception team might not be able to pick up on the sorts of complaints which would be appropriately signposted, but actually with a very small amount of training they were able to easily identify the sort of problems that were suitably dealt with in a community pharmacy rather than in GP surgery.
Our patients initially looked at this service, and I actually positioned it on our social media. I thought it was a really good way of trying to put it out there first to tell them what we were doing. And actually the feedback was really good. You know, here I was telling them that I'm not going to give them a GP appointment, I'm going to direct them somewhere else. But actually the feedback, and I think it was seen about 4,000 people saw it, and I think I had one piece of negative feedback, and another patient immediately went in and responded to it. I don't even have to respond. And the patients are getting seen the same day. What's not to like about that?
We're currently sending maybe 3 or 5 patients a day, and I'd say 70 or 80% of those are resolved within the community pharmacy.
We referred over with as much information as possible to help the pharmacist. And what we have found is that we get information back just as effectively too. And we will also get the emergency phone calls come through if we need to see a patient that day. It's worked really, really well. In fact, on one occasion, we sent a patient over who had some aching pain in a part of their body for a period of time, so would not have been in acute need for the day. However, we referred to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist immediately referred them to the emergency department and identified an acute need, which was fantastic.
On an average, we see about 3 to 4 patients daily that are being signposted from the surgery.
This new service has meant a great deal to our surgery team. It has allowed us to free up appointments to enable our GPs to be able to focus on the more complex cases.
I realised that patients really enjoy interacting with the pharmacist. They treat us very seriously over here. They're very, very thankful for the advice that we give them. They feel that this is a very professional service, and they're actually very relieved that they don't have to wait in very long queues to see their GP.
So I think the CPCS pilot has a real opportunity to help general practice, which in many places is struggling quite a lot at the moment. And anything that we can do to reduce our daily demand and manage the more complex patients rather than perhaps some of the minor illness, I think is really valuable for general practice.
The thing that I like the most about the service is it gives me the opportunity to show my skills. We've been training very hard for years to become pharmacists, and I think this is a perfect service to actually show off our skills and be able to give an amazing level of care to our patient.
I would like it that the patient has had the education of the right place at the right time, and that self-care is where they look first, and they look towards their pharmacy before they come to their GP practice.
Thank you to everybody who helped making that video. What I'd now like to do is introduce you to Elaine Bailey, who is the support team manager at Southmead and Henbury Family Practice in Bristol. Elaine's going to talk to you about how she went about implementing it in her surgery and what it's meant for her team. Elaine recorded this video for Dorset LPC as one of their evening training sessions, and Dorset LPC were kind enough to let us use the audio from that as part of this training session. Apologies, there is a little bit of background noise occasionally, but I'm sure you'll agree the content is well worth a listen.
It's great to have the opportunity to celebrate the success of the Pharmacy Referral Initiative. I am the support team manager at Southmead and Henbury Family Practice. We cover 2 sites, and the demographic of our patients is primarily one of high deprivation. We launched in December 2019, and to date have referred over 450 patients, allowing our practice the bragging rights of being top of the tables in Avon. There were two main reasons for us joining. Firstly, we wanted to continue to educate our patients on self-care and also to elevate the role of the community pharmacy. Secondly, we were also aware of an increase in minor ailments on clinician screens, which were blocking patients being able to be navigated to a suitable appointment when needed. So, how did we implement the CPCS into our support team navigation process? We worked closely with Judith, the implementation manager for Avon LPC, who delivered the initial training to our team and who continues to offer support and feedback. We set a launch date and ensured that the practice team were confident and motivated to begin referring patients. We used the data regularly received from Judith to evaluate and communicate to our practice team how the referral process is impacting our patients. From the start, we approached the launch with positivity and ensured all those involved were trained and felt listened to. We have built strong relationships with our community pharmacy, and our patients have in turn started to build those relationships too. We found trust when navigating a really important issue for patients, and by creating a triangle of navigators, pharmacy, and clinicians, patients are confident that they are being listened to and that the appropriate care is being offered. It is not always over-the-counter medication, but advice and support that patients receive. And we have received lots of positive feedback from patients who have a new understanding of what community pharmacy is. And in turn, our appointment book has some breathing space. Positive language and clear explanation of the process remains at the forefront of the support team navigators. And we are now, as a practice, at a stage where pharmacy referrals are embedded into our everyday practice.
I'm sure you'll all agree that was a highly informative and truly inspiring way that surgery has gone about delivering the service. I'm now going to hand over to Judith Poulton, who is the Avon LPC Implementation Manager. Judith has been pivotal in landing this project across Avon, and I want her to share with you some of her experiences that she's had from delivering this project. Over to you, Judith.
Hello, my name's Judith and I am the Implementation Manager of Avon LPC, and I want to talk to you about the pilot that we implemented across our CCG. Do not underestimate how big a challenge it is getting into practices. You need to find the right person, and this varies by practice. You need to be tenacious and use different methods to engage with them. This could be meetings, phone calls, using CCG advocates and practice pharmacists. Once you have advocates from practices, use them to spread the word within their PCNs. I trained all the community pharmacists and their teams, as I wanted there to be consistency, and I wanted them to understand the clear escalation process, which included using the practice's professional line. Included within that training was something around making sure that team members could identify patients who had been referred officially from the GP practice for a consultation with the pharmacist. Initially, no practices accepted my offer to train their teams. At Christmas, we did a questionnaire, and the clear messages that came back were, 1, they wanted clear management information, and 2, they wanted us to come in and do face-to-face training with their reception team. So what did that training look like? There are 3 key things for me that made the training really good. The first thing is, this is about winning the hearts and minds of those reception team members. That team needs to have confidence and trust that their patients are going to be looked after in a professional manner and will get the best care and attention that they need. This is also about ensuring that you train the right people and that they have a clear leader. And you need to include within that training how you get the patient's buy-in. So what do I mean by patient buy-in? This is about the words that you use. So, for example, you could say to Mrs. Smith, I'm sending you for a personal consultation with an NHS community pharmacy today. It's really important that the patient's heard that it's personal, it's an NHS service, and they can see somebody today. You also need to give the team the replies to the patients when they give the reasons why they can't attend a community pharmacy. So what difference did this training make? Well, as you can see from this graph, that the first 8 practices that I trained in January and February earlier this year went from virtually doing no referrals to doing a significant number of referrals on a daily and weekly basis. So what key messages would I like to leave you with? The first one is, you do need dedicated time to implement this across pharmacies and practices. It's not just going to happen. Using somebody with a community pharmacy background to do some of the implementation really helps. This is absolutely about engaging the key people, and those are your reception team and a leader who is going to lead this. And it doesn't have to be the GP or a practice manager. Finally, if you don't win the trust and confidence of the reception team, you are never going to be successful. Thank you.
That brings this session to a close. I hope you've really enjoyed listening to how we've approached delivering the CPCS service across Avon. It's been a real success. We've engaged with surgeries, we've engaged with pharmacies, and I'm really pleased with the results that we've been getting. Going forward, we're going to have it as one of our key strategic initiatives across our LPC for at least the next year. And we hope that all of you in LPCs are going to be able to do the same and to support your pharmacies to deliver this really important service. If we do this, we'll truly start to change the way that community pharmacy works and the clinical outcomes it brings for its local community. Thank you for listening, and I hope it's given you some great ideas as to how you can implement it on your LPC.